The hydraulic tank on the Linebacker is located just behind the cab. On the left side of the machine, you've got a hydraulic oil fill cap, and you have a max and a min level. Obviously, if it ever goes below that min, you want to be sure to bring it back up to max. Be sure you are on a level surface though. If the machine's leaning, say, the left side of the machine is downhill, you're going to show a lot more oil that's actually in there. So you want to be sure that this machine is on a nice level surface when you do check that. I know as hard as it is back in the woods to find that surface, but you just try to get as on a flat, a level surface as possible. Located just behind the hydraulic filler neck, you're going to see that there's a green and red gauge on our return filters. So not only is that a hydraulic filter location, but you also have a gauge on it. And what that gauge is it tells you if there's a contaminants or debris inside of that return filter. So when you do check that gauge, you want to be sure that your oil is up to operating temperature, which is roughly above 90 degrees. You can go ahead and check that oil, and with the machine on, if it is in the green, you're good to go. That means that the filter is functioning properly, and if it's in the red, that means that that filter is starting to clog up with debris. So you want to just go ahead and change that return filter as soon as possible. Now on the left side of the machine, you're going to have your coolant reservoir and the cap located on the top of it. Now you always want to check that cap right away in the morning. Be sure that it's sealing, and also just be sure there's no debris around that area that could pop that cap off or something throughout the day. But just check that cap every morning. Now there is no sight glass on this particular reservoir. What we've done is we've engineered the electronic circuits and the sensors inside of this reservoir tank. It's going to notify you if it's low, if that sensor's not working, anything that would cause either damage to the engine or a potential leak. It's going to notify you right away. So with it being that there is not a sight glass on it, when you are filling it, or if you ever have to add coolant, looking down inside of there, that filler neck, you just fill it to the bottom of the filler neck. Be sure that it's just up to the bottom of that tube. That's outlined in our manual, but other than that, you should be good to go. One thing to just touch on briefly is be sure the machine's on a flat level surface when you do that. If you could get some false readings if the machine's kind of tilted one way or the next. So just be sure you're on a nice flat level surface when you do check the engine's coolant. If you're looking for coolant specs, refer to the engine manual for that. On the left side of the machine, inside the engine compartment, we do have our DEF supply module. One thing to note about that, when you go to shut down the machine at the end of every day, you're letting it idle to let that turbo cool down. After you shut the machine off, you might hear some clicking, some buzzing, some popping noises. What that is that engine is just doing a self-test, being sure that all the sensors are reading correctly, so on and so forth. But you'll also hear this DEF pump running. And what that is that we've designed the machine so at the end of every day, when you go to shut it off, that machine is actually going to reverse the flow, and it's going to clean out all the DEF inside of the lines. Now in colder climates, with DEF freezing right around 17 degrees without any additives in it, that's essential to clear those lines so you don't have frozen lines when you do start up in colder climates. But don't be concerned if you go and hit that kill switch to shut off the machine. If you still hear a few noises, some pumps working here and there, it is most likely going to be this DEF pump that's just self-evacuating those lines. You can also see the bottom of the coolant reservoir here with your main coolant tube that runs down to the engine. You're also going to have your master disconnect right in the center of the machine on the left-hand side here. What that is that's just another, if you walk away from the machine for the weekend, you can just go ahead and throw that master disconnect. Now that still does give power to the computer on the machine. It's got to do that, but it will cut power to everything else. It does have also two locking tabs on the bottom of it for security purposes. That switch is located right in between some nice jumper posts on the machine. If you ever do need to jump the machine, That is the quickest way. It provides direct power via one cable directly to the starter, so that's going to be the best supply that you can put another set of jumper cables onto. Just right of your master disconnect, you have two main fuses. Just underneath of the main fuses, you'll see that we have four solenoids or relays in there. That is just for easy use right there. There is one resettable relay there. Very simple operation. If it is tripped, there's a trigger that hangs out the side of it. All you have to do is push the trigger back in and you're good to go. Right behind our control area is the oil filter for the engine. So if you are looking for it, it's directly behind this plate. It's accessible from the bottom or from this side. Here at the rear of the machine, on the left-hand side, this is actually our battery compartment. So these two bolts, if you loosen those, this actually swings out. It gives you access to the two batteries on the machine. You know, if you ever are jump starting the machine, we have some jumper posts located on the left side of the engine compartment. But if you ever do have to service your batteries on the left-hand side, this entire plate will swing out, give you access to those batteries. We've already got the gate open here for the engine cooling fan. Couple things to point out is if you ever have to be back here, you know, servicing anything in the back, shut the engine off. You can be around the rear of the machine with this gate open while the engine is running, but just do so with caution. The reason being is we always want to be wearing, you know, obviously our PPE at all times around the machine when we're out on the job. But this fan is reversing. So every 15 minutes, it's going to go on a cycle that will switch directions of the air that's flowing on the rear of the machine. Now, if you have the engine running during that 15-minute point, if it does switch directions, there's a possibility that you might, you know, there might be some debris that comes out of the rear of the machine, dust, dirt, whatever. And so you want to be sure that you're not just back here and all of a sudden it switches directions and you get blasted with a bunch of dirt or soot. So just be sure you're really very cautious, and you know, if you absolutely have to, you can be back here while this gate is open, but we just recommend that you just always have the engine shut off whenever you're, you know, servicing any components back here. Just above the engine cooling fan, you're going to see our lights off the reverse, and right in the center is going to be your backup camera, which is adjustable. That backup camera is going to come on automatically when you do reverse the machine, but if it ever does become, you know, out of range or out of focus, something like that, it's adjustable at the top there, right just below our flasher. The winch here is a 20,000-pound winch, and so it is used to, you know, pull out the machine if you ever get stuck or you ever have to, you know, skid some logs, something like that. Easy operation. Inside the cab, we have both a wireless remote for the unit and a corded unit, just in case the batteries are dead or the wireless can't pick up the signal. We have that option. Usually when things go wrong, it's always in the worst of places, so we just try to back up that control of the winch as best as possible. Whenever you're using the winch, refer to our owner's manual at all times, and if you ever have to free spool the unit and pull out the cable, this lever here is just pulled up and moved over, and you can free spool out wire. Be sure though that you do shift it back when you do actually want to start winching in the cable.